Excellent. And we are live. I want to thank everyone for tuning in to a very special edition of Off the Record on the People's Podcast this afternoon. We have a magnificent guest with us today, one who is going to give us some amazing information as well as inspiration, and that is none other than our brother, Abdur Rasheed. How are you doing today, sir?
I am outstanding.
Wonderful. Well, while we get started, I wanted to and thank you everyone who's watching all around the world. I wanted to let everyone know that I was on TikTok and I saw this viral video going, and I saw a man who just explained in a short period of time a movie, basically. You know what I'm saying? This is just a great. I mean, it was a great story about his life, but giving different cases of triumphing and overcoming obstacles that were placed in front of him of racism, prejudice, and man, I'm just gonna let him tell the story. Peace, family. Peace, Mimi. Thank you for watching. What I wanted to ask you, sir, is let's get started. First of all, how does it feel to know that your videos on TikTok went viral, sir?
Well, for my friends and family that know me, I know they're tired of all my stories, but I saw that video about the man from Jackson, Mississippi, as my dad was from, and he was saying something about Gen Xers, which is of course my generation. You know, why are you so angry? Why are you so racially, charged? Everything about black this and that. He said the Gen X was the generation was the best racial harmony in American history, because then he started going on naming all of our music that we enjoyed or whatever.
Okay. Yes, sir.
And I saw it a few times, and I just scrolled like, yeah, shut up, So, and then that one day I just had time, and I'm like, let me just put together. And then as I'm talking about one issue, then the next one popped up, yeah, and then this is our reality, right? Where you might think that Snoop Dogg is in music in the '90s was a good soundtrack. It could also be a soundtrack to a beatdown if you us. So
Mm-hmm.
it was a and that level of, and I knew it wasn't a genuine question, because I saw as I looked into who he was, and he's one of those, he likes to push the buttons of racial, um, you know, in racist tolerance from that administration. And he went in about Trump being amazing and all that. And I knew it wasn't, but I felt that some perspective was needed for his question, which was disingenuous. But then
Yes, sir.
the reaction to it, I didn't expect at all. It was like I got my kids are on TikTok, so I got to be on TikTok. And I got, links between my Facebook friends and family and all. So I had maybe about 200 followers, people I follow. And by that end of that day, I had a couple thousand, and it was 100,000 views. And it was like the next day, it was a couple more, and it was 1,000,005, and another was a million. I think up to like 4.4 million. Like, it was crazy,
Wonderful.
overwhelming.
Yes, sir. Well, can we start with the first story? Because that was the story that drew me in, about owning the own land and what took place with your mother and being pregnant and what took place with you. Could you let us know?
My parents converted to Islam back in the 70s, and they changed their names. And my dad was in the civil rights movement. Um, he was doing the sit-in demonstrations and things, and he was telling me stories about going to the store and ordering something from a Caucasian gentleman at the register, and it was a death sentence for the even the perception of disrespect. And that could be anything as simple as a smile, direct eye contact, winking, to when they put your change down on the counter. My dad said, "You just take your change and leave. Now you count your change like this ain't right. You're like, you think you can behind me, boy? No, sir. All
Mm.
right, well, take that and go on about your business. Or you risk there was no such thing as trouble where you get a spanking or something like that. The mob would show up at your house and say, "You send him out here right now, or we're gonna burn this house down and deal with everybody else." And it put your parents in a hell of a position. Do I sacrifice my child, or do we end our family story right here? It's not. So growing up with those stories, and the last sit-in demonstration my dad did was in 1961. And I know that because when he had passed, we were looking at his paperwork, and he had a mugshot, his charges. It was disturbing the peace because he went to a diner, him and his two friends, and ordered a cheeseburger. He said when they went in, half the patrons, the white patrons, got up and spit and cursed and walked out. And the waitress would say, well, we don't serve colored here. My dad said, that's good because we don't eat colored. We like a cheeseburger, please. And so he said when that happened, they would give you a couple of options. They would either spit in it and try to make you eat it, or pick up some chicken shit or something off the backyard or somewhere and put it on there and try to make you eat it. Or they just call the police and then have you arrested. And I think it was like 4 months in jail and a $200-300 fine or something like that for ordering a cheeseburger. Now, they didn't say because you're black, everybody knows what Jim Crow laws are, right?
Yes, sir.
But the actual charge is disturbing the peace. So the last time that happened, my dad said that what I found was interesting when I found the article in the newspaper where they listed my dad and his two friends that did it with him. And they listed their name, address, and phone number in the local paper in Jackson, Mississippi. He said in the phone calls, they were nonstop. They had to keep the phone off the hook. There were the death threats. And my dad is he had 7 brothers. My grandfather would open up the gun cabinet and pass out rifles to all of them because the KKK was parked at the end of the road with the torches coming out of the windows. And they caught both his friends and lynched them. And my dad said that they were all pointing their weapons at the car, and they wouldn't come past their house. After we were sitting there for a while, they just did a burnout, turned around, and went the other way. So my dad said when he came home, my uncle and my grandfather, and they were all talking about how we were going to get him up north. So he ended up going and joining the army and going to Vietnam. He said he did very well in Vietnam until his record caught up with him. Because, when you buck the system, they label you a socialist or you one of them uppity ones, right? So
yes, sir.
That's kind of how it is. Oh, you don't like the racism we have here, so you must be against America. That's how ingrained it was, or it is in our country.
Yes, sir.
So when that happened, they dishonorably discharged him and he came up to Michigan. Then he met my mom, and then, I'm the second oldest of 9. So my parents bought 52 acres of land, feeling like the best opportunity for Black people is for us to get our own land, our own community. And they had a different Orthodox take on Islam. There were, they converted to Islam and they bought these 52 acres. And they had 3 mobile homes on this land. And we had well water. We had a generator for power at night. Me as a kid, I loved it. I was, from 11 to I think 15 when we had our house fire bomb. But I absolutely loved it. The freedom that I had, me and my bow and arrow and my dog out in the woods, I would fish and hunt, and it was great. Financially, we were very, very poor though, because we didn't have any money. We basically raised what we ate. We grew what we ate. Winter times were especially hard. My parents went to a town called Dundee. They have a animal auction. They went to go get another cow, a calf. And while they were gone, me and my older brother were watching our siblings in my mother's mobile home. My parents had their own mobile home. Me and my older brother, we had ours. And we had one for storage. I was washing dishes and I looked out the window and our house was on fire. There were 2 white guys standing out there drinking, looking at it like it was a cookout. And at that point, my parents came home, pulled up, they jumped in their truck, and they were doing donuts and rode down the road. My father came in and grabbed our shotgun. They were already gone. My mom came in and collapsed and hugged us and was crying. And as a parent now, I'm 51, thinking about what they must have been thinking. You're on your way back home. You see all this black smoke billowing in the distance, right? You got this cow in the back, and knowing you left your children home, like, wow, is that our, I've never had that conversation with them, but me putting myself in their position, like, wow, that must have been terrifying, right? And you see these guys driving and screaming N-word this and driving down the road. So the fire department came out, they put the fire out, and they said, we can't tell if it's arson or not. Only the fire marshal is qualified to do the inspection and make that determination. So the next day, they said he won't be able to come out till tomorrow. So the next day, my dad went to go get some lumber from, they were tearing down a barn miles up the road. And he went to go get some lumber so he can build up a fence between the tree lines of our property. So people can't just drive up on the property. And the people who have farms, they maintain a deep ditch between the road and their property. We didn't have a lot of money, so it was pretty shallow. So my mom thought it would be a good idea for him to just build a fence up there between the driveway and the tree line in the front of the property. So while my dad was gone, my mother was waiting on the fire marshal. I remember when we first moved out there years earlier, directly across from our farm, there was a Buddy's Mini Mart gas station. And me and my mom walked over there. Our next door neighbor, which is probably about a quarter mile up the road, a guy named Jim Carnell, he sold hunting weapons, and he used to repair weapons when hunters, break their sight or whatever. So he would repair the weapon, and he had like a 1 acre strip, quarter mile up the road, and you could hear him sighting the weapons in, test firing them in. So me and my mom went across the street to the Buddy's Mini Mart, and she asked the gas station attendant, I don't know a lot about guns, but I can hear this guy shooting in the distance. What is the risk of one of these bullets ricocheting or something and hitting one of these pumps and exploding? Because my family is right across the street. And the gas station attendant was like, no, ma'am, it's no risk at all. The gas is really kept underground. Here's a fire suppression system. Here, all kind of went through all the safety systems of the gas station, whatever. And I ain't think nothing else of it. So my mom's waiting on the fire marshal to show up. At this time, I want to go to my safe space. I want to go out to the farm, out in the woods, me and my dog. There's no way my parents gonna let me go out in the woods right after the firebombing and all. It's all tense, whatever, right? So my trick was I used to let our dog loose and then go in the house. And they would call me, Abdur, come here. Yes, sir. Catch that dog. Not run after the dog. You chase the dog, he's gonna take off, right? And then once we get out of sight, we out there all day. Finally, I come back with him and by his collar. You caught him, huh? Yes, sir. All right, tie him up. I don't know how you getting loose. Me neither. And I tie him back up, and that's my little safe space, right? So right after the fire, I know they're not gonna let me go out there, so I'm got a sneak past where my mom is in the driveway waiting on the fire marshal. Past her, we have a camper, and right on the other side of the camper is my dog. All I gotta do is bridge a gap about 6 feet as I'm sneaking, watching her, waiting on her to turn her back, so I can jump over that gap, let the dog loose, double back, go in the house, where them to call me. As I'm watching my mom, she's looking back and forth the road. My mom was 5 months pregnant with my sister at the time, one of my sisters. She's looking up and down the road. She's raking. I'm about to make my move and risk it all and bridge this gap, run around, let this dog loose. I see Hillsdale County sheriffs pull up. 2 of them. They grab my mother. They handcuffed her. She didn't resist or anything. She had our shotgun with her in case the people who firebombed us came back, but she couldn't. My mom was like 5'5", and she was 5 months pregnant. So she couldn't carry a 12-gauge Remington and put it up on her shoulder. So she had it up against the fence. They reached around and grabbed it, put it in the trunk, and drove off with her. I go in the house, told my other brother what I saw. A few hours later, my dad came back with all this lumber loaded down on the truck. I ran out there and told him what I saw. He left, came back a few hours later and said they arrested your mother for felonious assault. They said she had the shotgun in the pocket of her shoulder, pointing at cars up and down the road. And so at her trial, the fire marshal himself said he was on his way to our property and she was in the road pointing the shotgun at him. He had to swerve to keep from getting shot. Coming the other direction, the police chief was coming the other way, told the exact same story. For the prosecutor, that gas station attendant across the street said, yeah, this lady asked me if she shot one of these pumps, would it blow up and kill a bunch of white people? And the whole court was like, oh, and it was like, oh, that's it. And they convicted her. She did 133 days, Hillsdale County Jail. And every day they had a story, an article about her. Because when they first arrested her, she didn't tell them nothing. It was like, what's your name? I have the right to remain silent. So they put her in as Jane Doe, blah, 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 in the newspaper article. And every day when they found out her name was Rashid, my dad was able to go and visit her every day as her religious counsel. So he was over to visit her. The big thing, if she's going to have a baby, it's going to be a ward of the state. It was out of stress. My parents, when they arrested her, the cop described her as a 5'9" black male, weighing about 160 pounds, wearing all dark clothing. My mom had a navy blue coat and a canary yellow headscarf. Now, my daily wear was a black snowmobile suit, so I had on all dark clothing, and I was 5'9", and at the time when I was that age. So my parents felt they were trying to target me or my brother. So when my mom was in jail, they sent all my other siblings to Texas to live with my grandparents, and they sent me and my older brother to Chicago to stay with our great uncle. So when they finally let her out in 133 days, we came back. She had to go to Coldwater, which is about 40 miles away. Our truck was not going to make it out there, and they would just use, after she had the baby, they were just going to violate her and put her back in jail. So we all moved back to the city.
Yes, sir. Okay, and first of all, thank you for your transparency and telling us your story about your parents. And man, this was what we went through as a people, but what you went through as an individual and as a family, as a family. What are your parents' names, sir?
My mother's name was Abdur Rasheed. My dad's name was Muhammad Rashid.
Yes, sir. Beautiful. Yes, sir. Strong. Okay. Now, once this took place and you all moved, did you ever go back to visit the land, or did you sell the land, or what happened?
My parents sold the land after that, but I went back out there and visited. I think I ended up getting a vehicle. Had been about early 2000s, 2002, and I had to go to Ohio to get it, like some dealer way out in like Morenci. And then as I'm driving, I'm like, hey, this is where the old farm was, right? So I kind of veered off and went down US 12. It was right off US 12. Buddy's Mini Mart was a different chain gas station at that point. But all the land was gone. The land was there, but the mobile homes were gone. The pump house is gone. But I could stand there, and it's on a big slope hill, so I remember I was standing out there.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Okay, now once you moved to Detroit, did things become better?
When we moved to Detroit, in some aspects, my parents was against the government 100%. They didn't want to get welfare. They wanted nothing from the government. Like I said, they were on 100% committed to not using anything from and be completely self-sufficient. We went to Detroit. It was everybody my age, 14, 15 years old. It was the height of the crack epidemic. We looked like the Clampets because, I never had a professional haircut. We were all like very, very poor. Right? Like, it was like It was something different, and we were treated, at least on my level, from my peers in the in the neighborhood, like we're like the Adams family. We were like weird, and so I absolutely hated it.
Mm.
Um, that is until I got a job and I made my first money. And I think minimum wage was $3.35 or something like that. And I got a job stocking shelves at like a Sam's Club. It was called the Warehouse Club on 8 Mile of Pointer. And they were paying $5 an hour. I was like, oh, that's $1 million. For somebody who's never seen money, right? So I'm like, I
Yes,
want
sir.
every freaking penny I can get. So I was working 10 hours a day. I think it was like maybe 2 miles away from my house, and I had to be there at 5 in the morning. So I had to get up, get washed up, and head out the house walking no later than 3:10 in order to get there about 10-15 minutes early in time for work. So I did that religiously every day. I was on it. And then my dad was like, "You still walking to work?" I'm like, "Yes, sir." He said, "Why don't you get a bike?" And I was like, "I never thought of that." All right. So I went and bought this bike, and it was the best thing ever. I was, I had my parents had signed me and my brother up for Arabic tutor in Dearborn Heights. I used to
Okay.
ride my bike way out the way. I mean, miles and miles, Farmington Hill, and that sense of freedom was the best sense I'd had since being on a farm. And it was like I love, but I was so young and naive. It was. So I'm when I first got this bike, I'm riding it, and it was some homeless guys. Like they had like these milk crates strapped to the back of their bike. They had all types of junk and stuff on there, and you see them riding up and down the major street all the time. I remember the first time I saw them, I tried to catch up with them, couldn't.
Mm.
By I don't know, maybe August, I'm riding with them, like, and I'm keeping up with them, and they, I had to keep going. I had to turn off, and I'm like, yeah, I kept up with the homeless man. They were like, "Good job, young blood." Yeah, and I felt like I did accomplish something.
Yes, sir.
So one night, it was about 10:30 at night. I'm so oblivious to the city. I'm riding my bike, and I heard somebody panting. Like, turn to look, and the guy was hauling up to my bike. I'm so naive. I'm thinking it's a homeless jogger or something. I don't know. I'm like, "How you doing?" He was like, "What's up?" He swung and hit me in the face with something, and I went head over bike, flipped over. I got up and started running. I heard laughing. I turned around when I was running. I saw a guy get on my bike and ride around. It's like 10 people out there. Some people were laughing about how funny it was watching me fall off the bike, and 3 of them were running after me. And in my mind, all I got to do is get to the first house and knock. I'll be in. I'll be safe. So I ran past this church. It was a field with an oak tree in the middle of it. And next to that, it was a house. I ran. I finally got to the porch, banging on the door, "Help me, help me, help me." And I heard, "Get the fuck off my porch." Oh, shit. I
Mm.
didn't even think about that. That was, go to the next house. I'm knock, 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 knock. I got there. They caught me, took me over to the field. I had nothing in my pockets. And they just took turns beating me up with the gun over and over again in the face. Finally, I closed my eyes, and he cocked the gun and said, "Let's just kill him." And I'm thinking, fuck the city, fuck everything, right? I miss being on the farm. It was like he shot the ground next to me, and they walked off laughing. A couple pulled up, and they said, "Are you okay?" We saw the whole thing. They took me home, called the police. They came out with that yellow pad. "What? Black on black crime? Wow, that's amazing." Okay, well, we were right on that, right? And I still ain't heard from them. So,
Mm.
and that was it. So I go back to work. Um, I, I'm still working, but I'm paranoid. In my mind, everybody I saw was trying to rob me. Old people, young kids, everything. I'm still working, but I'm. So after a while, I go to cash my check, I go to the check cashing spot. They take like $7 out your check, and my check was like $222.13. I leave out this place. I got this cash in my pocket. I'm paranoid. I hear, "Hey!" My heart almost jumped out my throat. I turn and look. These cops pulled up. They walk up to me, and I'm thinking, man, I'm gonna explain how he scared the shit out of me. We're gonna laugh about it. They walked up and gut checked me, doubled me over. And when they stood me back up, I'm coughing and trying to catch my breath. I don't know what the hell's happening. They're going through my pockets. They take my cash out, take my wallet out. They handcuff me. They walk me to the squad car. They put me in the back. He calls in my ID. The dispatch calls back, all clear. And the officer says, "Well, you heard her. She said you got a warrant for $222.13. You're going to pay it right here. You're going to pay it at the precinct." Now, it's Friday afternoon, about 5:30. I'm handcuffed, and I'm still thinking it's just a bit misunderstanding. I'm like, I didn't do anything. And the cop says, "Well, you ain't hear me. She said you got a warrant for $222.13. When he said it again, the second cop starts laughing. "You're going to pay it right here. You're going to pay it at the precinct." And I'm like, I didn't do anything. He jumped out the car, got in the back, took his gun and put it in my neck and said, "Nigga, what the fuck is you yelling at? I will blow your fucking brains out." And I felt terrified and pissed off. And I had this, you know how you feel that tear welling up? And I'm like, don't drop that fucking tear. And that thing rolled down my face. And I was so ashamed. And I said, "All right, remember your breathing, calm down. I didn't do anything, sir." He started laughing. So, "Oh, you want to pay it downtown?" Took me to I think it was the 7th precinct on Mac and Grafton. I think they got closed down for corruption. Didn't fingerprint me, didn't take no mug shots, no charges, no paperwork. Put me in the cell, closed the door. People, grown men in there screaming and hollering all night, yelling turnkey this, and I'm in there. I don't know what's gonna happen all weekend. Monday they just let me out, gave me my money back, gave my wallet back, and they did that as a way to teach you a lesson. You either gonna pay the money or you're gonna give up your weekend. Which one are you gonna do? Hmm. I walked all the way home. I get in the house, my parents freaking out. "Where were you?" I told them what happened. My dad, old civil rights guy, "Get in the truck, let's go." We go up there. He was like, "Tell me why I had my son in here all weekend." The cop didn't ask my name, no information. He just started smiling like, "Here we go. Here's another one." And started fake typing. "We have no record of your son being down here." My dad was like, "Bullshit. You gonna tell me why I had my son down here all weekend?" He stood up and unsnapped his weapon. He's like, "You got a weapon on you?" We left. So, it was common knowledge amongst us to say, okay, on Friday, cops are on the hunt.
Yes, sir. Okay. Wow. And thank you everyone who's watching and showing love to our brother Abdur Rasheed. We definitely sending love and positive energy your way. Did you, once this took place, as time moved on, did you ever want to move away?
I tell you, I hated being in the city. There is absolutely nothing about, because not even beyond all of that, I felt like an outcast, just living, just being me, right? I didn't have that sense of freedom at all. And I had no friends, we were, I'm saying we were too poor. Everybody else in the latest, whatever. I got no sense of any of that, right? All my clothes, you look at pictures of my older brother, and the clothes he was wearing, right? So it was, I was to fantasize about leaving and going somewhere else, or just being able to eat every day and stuff like that. I think it molded me a lot. It made me very hungry now, so I'm kind of an overachiever in that way. So it makes me now. There are good and bad parts in that, but like life, I used to be a very linear thinker where I used to think, okay, my job is to have this goal and then map out my steps to get to that goal. But life has a way of kind of putting things in perspective for you, fortunately or unfortunately. And so lately, life has shown me that I got to enjoy the journey a little bit more. You know what I mean? Because once I hit the goal, and then what? My back is broken up. I wore myself out. And for what? For money, for things, property, for trips. What have I done it for? If I can't enjoy it.
Mm.
But I ended up joining the military. So there's an argument to be made. There's nobody more patriotic in the United States than Black people. Because it's one thing to say you're not welcome here because you're Black. And that's happened to me before, or this our bar, or this is our club, or whatever, and blah, 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 blah. Just regular knucklehead racism. But they have it legally, the authority, the government, the local state tops. It's illegal for you to eat here because you're Black. You can't drink out of that water fountain because it's something you had nothing to do with. You know what I mean? That's a different type. And then still sign up and serve. So so my dad told me all these stories about growing up in the Jim Crow South, right? And then I saw these things with my own eyes. I saw my house firebombed. I saw him, arrest my mom. I've been robbed by the police. I've had all these things happen to me. I had a certain thought process, and I did not. My dad was saying, white people don't trust me. But when I joined the military, when I first got to boot camp, it was me and 80 other people in this freaking platoon when we first got there. I don't know anybody, nobody know me. And looking around, these white people like, oh, fuck, have I done? I'm saying, shoulder to shoulder with these people. I don't know them. I don't know where they're from. I don't trust them. Just based on my own experiences and what I'm taught. But as you go through the training process, they had a very good way of equalizing everybody. Now, we all gonna have the same haircut, same uniform. We all be screaming, yes, sir, no, sir, I, sir, at the top of our lungs. We had a guy in our platoon from South Korea, could not speak English. His last name was Ng, spelled Ng. But he could scream, I, sir, just like the rest of us. Right? That's all English he had to know. Just be loud and fast. And by the time Hell Week is over, when they in your ass 24 hours for one straight week trying to get everybody to quit. If you're going to quit right now and not week 6 when you get bullets for that rifle you've been marching around with. So you weed them out. We started with like 80-something people in our platoon. By the time Hell Week is over, we down to 60. And we finally get a moment to ourselves. You can write your family and take it easy before you go to bed, and blah, blah, and then we can talk. Where you from? I'm from Arkansas, I'm from Alabama, I'm from Detroit, I'm from, and it kind of like, okay, all right. So we all horse and shit, same haircut, all right, we got all that out the way. Where are you from? Why? How do you think? Blah, blah. And then you'll build these bonds. And then you go to combat training and combat and these things. You save their life, they save your life. It's a different culture that you appreciate. Mm. So that was my way to get out. And then when I had been in for a while, 9 years, and then I had the MPs came in my office and they told me that my dad had a massive heart attack. And they got orders to put me on the first flight. So they came and got me, and they put me in the first flight. I flew back to Detroit. And my dad, he had a quadruple bypass where they spread him and bypassed four of his bowels for his heart because he had smoked for over 50 years. You know, back when he started smoking at like 8 or 9 years old, they used to advertise what type of cigarette your doctor smoked. My doctor smokes Pall Malls. You know, now mentholated is better for you, you know, that type of stuff. So they kind of, but he smoked for a while and it eroded his heart. So your heart, it works 24/7, right? And it needs a lot of oxygen. So if you're smoking and you're building up that tar in your lungs, you can't pull the oxygen out of the air in order to process for your heart, for your vital organs, whatever, and it tears your heart up. So it would fill it with fluid, and I would call him. They'd station me actually in Detroit for my last year here, at the Broadhead Armory next to the Belle Isle Bridge, and I'd call him and check on him. Hey, Dad, how you feeling? Like, I don't know, son. I think I'm sick. And what you mean? You think you're sick? You either sick, you not sick. Like, I don't know. I feel like I can't get enough air. I don't know what's going on. I'm like, all right, well, I'm on my way. Come get him. Take him to the hospital. He's like, yep, lungs full of fluid. And then they had to, a couple of his arteries were clogged, so they cut him and do a decatheterization, snake him out, get the fluid out of his lungs. Fine. And that happened a few times. Called him, Dad. Oh, no, I think I'm sick again. All right, well, I'm on my way. And then my mom called me, this was in 2004, and said, I need you to go pick your dad up from the hospital. You know, I can't wait anymore. You're waiting on one more test to come back. I got somewhere to go. Go pick your dad up. I'm like, all right, I'll go pick him up. I left work, went up to the hospital. The nurse said, we still waiting on this one more test. And I ended up waiting there for about 10 hours. And it was probably one of the best 10 hours I've ever had. Because my dad is a strong guy. And he's always been the type of person, like, if you ever need a friend, go get a damn dog. I ain't your friend, I'm your daddy. Right? That's how you. But this day, I'm an adult and we're talking. He's asking me questions about my career and he's like, he's my biggest fan for the first time. I'll hang on every word and I know all of his stories. This day, we're talking. And for like 10 hours, I just couldn't get enough, right? It was just an amazing day. And when the nurse came back and said, okay, well, you're probably not going to get this result back to tomorrow. So you come back tomorrow. And Dad was like, your mom probably come get me tomorrow, son. You know, and he wheeled his IV pole to the elevator. And I hugged him. I love you, Dad. I love you too, son. And I turned around and hit the elevator button. And he's like, hey. I said, yes, sir. So I really love you. You know that, right? Never that level of, So I stopped, go back over there and hug him. Okay. And he said it again. Hey, I really love you. You know that, right? Well, all right, Dad, you ain't batting your way now. And I just hugged him as long as I could, whatever. And that was the last time I saw him. I think he passed away a few weeks later. And, you hear the phone ringing. It was a Saturday, about 7 a.m. And I felt my wife get up and go get the phone, and half my brain is relieved, like I ain't got to get up. All right, she got it, and I kind of kick into that next gear. She came and she sat down and she just burst out crying. And I just stood up and grabbed her, like, are you okay? She said, I'm so sorry your dad died. And I didn't even process that. I'm just, she crying. I'm just hugging her. And then blood started flowing. I started waking up, and then I realized it. And that was it. Buried him.
Yes, sir. May God be pleased, and God be pleased with your father. And man, people were just showing you love, sir. How did that impact your relationship with your parents, but primarily with your father, that you were able to show love with him? How did that impact your parenting?
The thing that I realized, because I got 3 generations of kids. And when I was young, when I was early 20s, late teens, and I had my two oldest. I was under the assumption that I was raising children, and you're not raising children, right? Because you only children that long, and I didn't realize that. And so, in my immature mind, I was thinking that the hardest thing about it is changing diapers and having to be there, and I equated it with being on a farm, and it's just a daily thing you have to do every day, no days off. It's just what it is, and that's what I thought I was. So when I was young, I would show up, Toys R Us. I'm thinking I'm killing this parenting thing. I'm come home from leave and I'm doing all these things and material, blah blah blah. I'm thinking parenting solved. I don't know what the big problem is. And then when I had me and my wife, we had our other two boys, our middle boys, Trey and Kamal. That was the first time I was older and I could appreciate living with children every day. My oldest two, they live with their moms, right? And so but I was a different person. I was a drill instructor dad. I done probably had them boys do more push-ups. They probably done push Michigan about 10 inches below sea level, you know. So I was trying to get out of the mindset of spanking my kids because they say it's harder on me than it is you. Never is that more true for me. It wipes me out mentally, right? So I took a different approach. So I took like a drill instructor approach because that's what I knew, right? You're either gonna be smart or you're gonna be strong. Which one are you gonna be? Push. And they get little arms quibbling around, and not. And so in my mind, that's what you're supposed to do. I'm supposed to be the disciplinarian, and also when I got out, I started making more smart financial moves. So I started being a little bit more successful. And in my mind, I'm gonna live my childhood vicariously with my children. So they like everything. They had the PlayStation was coming out. I had 6 people out on different Game Stops and places trying to get the latest blah blah and Black Fridays, and plus I never had Christmas growing up, right? Because I was raised Muslim.
Yes, sir. I'm familiar.
So it's hard living in a Western society in America, being taught that Christmas is the devil, is evil.
Yes,
and
sir.
Literally everywhere. What you go? You can't turn on the radio. You can't watch TV. You can't go drive down the street. You see lights. Oh, that's nice. No, that's not. It's really dope. It's kind of
Yes,
hard.
sir.
When
Yes,
me and my
sir.
wife got married, we got the boys. I'm like, I can't do that to them. You're going to be the person you're going to be, and I can't push any religion on you. My job is to make sure you're a good person. And the way with the light bulb that went off is that religion can't make you good. You got to be good, and then you'll adopt a religion and then channel that goodness into the good works of Christianity, Islam, whatever religion you adopt. But if you're a bad person, you're gonna get Jonestown. You know what I'm saying? It's like, who are you, right? And so my job, I've always said, is to make sure they're good people. If you take a religion and you feel it and you spiritually is what you need, then, I just want you to be a good person. My boys, I spoiled them, but I was very strict. But it made them more. They believe in magic. Turn the light and flip that switch, light comes on, it's magic. You open the refrigerator, it's full of food. It's just magic. Pantry is always full of snacks and it's just magic, with no thought to how all that happens. But my son Trayvon, he was I think he was probably the best of us. He had this thing where we added him to our credit cards. So when he was 18, he had perfect credit. Now he wasn't given the cards, but we pay it, he gets the credit for it, and that's how you kind of push that So he starts off on a. So when he got his first truck, we bought him a second truck, a little bit better. Third one, he just went in there and signed the paperwork and drove off the lot. You know, it was like, you know, he worked and he works construction, and he would live off of his per diem. So when you're out of town, they pay you a per diem, $65 a day or whatever. You just live off that, stack his money. You know, it was very smart. My younger son, Kamal, you know, the same thing. He had perfect credit, and he wanted to get a car, and I'm like, okay. I was working, I was on, you know, assignments, and I had contracts and obligations I had to do. He called me and said, "Dad, I need you to put me on your insurance. I just bought a car. Just bought a car. Yeah, I just used my you know, my American Express and did a zero interest 6 months, and you know, I just went cash down and cashed his car out. Blah blah. I just need insurance." And by the time I got the message and called him, he had already got his own insurance. I'm like, okay, I'm like, I did something right, you know. But getting them to that point where they are more independent and financially responsible took a minute, right? Because it's not, I was just giving, that's I think. But it turned out well for them. And now we have these girls. And now I know enough to know where my pitfalls were. Now it's okay, you get money based on the level of detail you put into your chores. All right. So now they're like, okay. Now one of them just want to do the bare minimum because you know, the other one is like that button click. Oh, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that now, and pay me. And the thing that I pay them for, you know, when they get their report cards, I pay $50 an A.
Yes, sir.
B's get zero. Oh, what you gonna do, right? So it keeps that. So you know, you're not just raising children, you're raising adults, and you forget they're not the only ones growing up. You should too.
Beautiful. Yes, sir. And people, thank you very much. Thank you, Mimi. Thank you, everyone who's watching, showing love. Brother Nelson, Mr. Jamil, everyone who's showing love. So many people who are watching all around the world. Thank you all for every comment. And thank you, everyone for every like, share, subscription. We have a quick 60-second commercial break for all of the sponsors of the People's Podcast. We are grateful for every anonymous Cash App. And man, everyone just showing love. This new season of People's Podcast, and we're coming right back to our brother Abdur Rasheed. And man, I'm motivated, so I know that everyone who's watching is motivated as well. 1 second. And we are live with the People's Podcast. Street Premiere Media Production. He has a 4K camera and a drone. He does television and film editing. Please reach out if you need any of that. Sister Naima, Stay On Point Dance Academy. She teaches ballet virtually to young girls all across the country. Sister Miriam, ABC I Love Me children's book and coloring book. My father's book, A Soldier in the Movement of Christ. My two books, Cleopatra, which is a children's book, and No Father, No Excuse, both of which are available on Amazon. Wonderful. All right, sir. My next question for you is, what has been your greatest joy in life?
My greatest joy in life. Again, that question would have had several answers depending on my stage of development. Right. I started a company in 2017, a mechanical contracting company. I was trying to get a contract to run a wastewater treatment plant. There are companies and that's what they do. So you're the mayor of a town or city, you know, and you're in charge of all the police, all the fire department, the garbage pickup, sanitation, water treatment, wastewater treatment. And you're a career politician. You're the mayor, right? So your job is to give speeches, kiss babies, shake hands, and get elected, right? You don't know anything about police or fire or, you know, all these different services. So there are companies that'll come in and say, okay, Mr. Mayor, You're in charge of all the water treatment and wastewater treatment. You have the whole staff, they're city employees. Let us take care of everything for you. We'll hire the people that's there, the ones that make it, and blah, blah, blah. We'll cut costs. It costs you $10 million a year to run it. Give us 8. You know, for a mayor, that's $2 million in your budget. You can have parks and things and clean up, and blah, blah, and help yourself get elected and help the people. It's a good deal for you. He said, okay, and every month we'll come to you and we'll tell you what went right, what went wrong, and we'll kind of, tell you we need extra money for capital or whatever, and take care of that. So their companies, that's what they do, right? And these are multi-billion-dollar companies all over the world. They take they manage water and wastewater treatment plants. So I got a job as the assistant plant manager of the 4th largest one in Michigan. I got this job. One of the vice presidents of this company was also a Marine, and he knows my resume because he's also a Marine, and he knows that I'm not just a Marine, I'm an exceptional Marine.
Yes, sir.
But he could be like, oh, shit, you were field boarded? It was like, oh, yeah. And so we could talk. So he hired me as the assistant plant manager. So the plant manager of this plant was like this guy was a little. I explain. When I went there, when I first got there, this guy was sitting up against the building smoking a cigarette and was like, well, no need for me to interview you. The vice president told me to hire you. So I guess I just give you the tour. Come on. And just walked off. And I'm following. There's a clarifier. There's a bar screen. I go back to the airport. And then I start this job. And he said, in order to run a plant this size, with this amount of complexity, it's going to take you at least 3 years to learn everything you need to know. But don't worry about it. I'll be here every step of the way. 3 weeks later, he quit. So I'm in this job. I'm some say I'm a sharp guy, right? So I can figure it out, right? So I'm in charge of this plant, and in this plant, I have 2 chains of commands, 2 people that I report to. One, I have the company that pays me, and 2, I have the client that pays my company. So I got the mayor that we all report to, and then I got a boss with my company, right? But as long as the company, the municipality, the mayor is happy, and they paying the mayor, it's pretty easy, right? So this plant made about $4 million a year. It was the largest plant that they ran in the state of Michigan. So when the plant manager quit, we had this huge flood that hit all the cities, and I kind of managed it very well. When you're running a wastewater plant, and wastewater is just all the drain water for all the houses, businesses, they all flood. They got to go somewhere, right? You just can't just flush Snicker bars down the river, right? They all come to the wastewater plant. They take the Snicker bars out of the water. They put the water back in the river, and the Snicker bars, they come and they dispose of it. That's basically the treatment plant in a nutshell. So when I'm running this plant, they wanted me, I'm looking at the contract, and the contract says we make $4 million a year in this plant, but we also have an opportunity to make more money from the municipality by replacing capital. So if there's a large pump or a large machine that we use for treatment, that's not part of the regular O&M of the plant. Like if you're in a house, right, you pay your bills every month, but you don't count on replacing the furnace every month or replacing the water tank every month, right? Yes, that's all capital expenditures. Is a big chunk of money. So plants and businesses are the same way. So they got these clarifier tanks, and they could be $2 million piece of equipment that they're using. It's almost on this last leg. You got to replace that. So in our contract, we can replace that and then upcharge the client. So, okay, well, I can buy it cheaper, tell you, upsell it. And so I was able to do that. So our capital budget was $200,000 when I got there. Within the next year, I replaced all types of equipment, and I got our annual budget of about $4 million additional. So I was turning a $4 million plant to an $8 million plan.
Go ahead. Yes,
Now,
sir.
the client, they love me to death. The company, I made them so much money, I doubled money, they love me to death. I'm in a good spot.
Yes, sir.
So in this forum, it's not just the mayor, it's 7 different mayors that ran this plant. They own the plant. And they told me, he called me and he said, Abdur, listen, I need a favor. After this big flood that happened, we want to carry a separate rider for the insurance for the plant. So if you could send me the company's rider, how much money they charge them to have insurance for the plant, so we can kind of get a comparison what that's going to cost. And I said, no problem, Mr. Mayor, but the problem is I don't have it here at the plant. I got to call corporate and I can get it from them and I'll send it to you. I appreciate it, no problem. I call corporate, hey, I need a copy of our insurance. They said, no, we don't do that. I was like, you can't just tell, it's not no. These people pay us $8 million a year, right? You just can't tell them no. Well, we don't do that. Here we, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, it's not acceptable. Who's your boss? Talk to the boss. No, we don't do that. I called the vice president that hired me. And I said, can't get a copy. I need a copy of our insurance to give to the board that pays us. He's like, yeah, why would they give it to you? That's bullshit. I'll call you right back. He called me like, yeah, they said no. To the vice president? So I ended up talking to the head of legal. They called me and said, we don't do that, but I tell you what we'll do. We'll send you a copy of it. We'll redact all the proprietary information we don't want them to know. They can't take it with them. They got to read it in your office. And they sent me this phone book and they redacted damn near every word in this thing. It was like an insult for me to give it to the mayor. Like, here you go. So I called him and told him. And he was like, well, at the next board meeting, you tell them to bring their butt down there and we want to talk to them. Okay. Hey, head of legal, vice president, come on down. They want to talk to y'all. I'm in the middle of it. I'm in the board meeting. The board's sitting up there on their little chairs, their high chairs, right? And the company executives come in and they get into it. We don't do that for clients. And who you think you are? And they all, and I'm like, oh my God, this is just unnecessarily goofy. So after that meeting, they're like, yeah, we know this ain't you. This is the corporate structures, bullshit, blah, blah. It got heated in there. I left. A couple days later, the mayor calls me and said, hey, I need you to come by my office. You don't mind. I want to talk to you off the record. I'm like, okay. I go down there. He said, I was talking to the board members and we all agree that we appreciate everything you've done for the plant. It runs better than ever. I have a personal relationship with the state and the federal regulators that handle the wastewater and water treatment, blah, blah, blah. State of Michigan and DEQ. And all the reports and everything's great, blah, blah. And I said, Mr. Mayor, I was always been told, ignore everything before the but. So let me hear it. Started laughing like, okay. Well, we love what you do, but we hate your company. I'm like, I know, but they pay me, right? Yeah, I know that. All right, so let me run this by you. Me and the board members were thinking the contract with your company and us will be up in about 3 years. And we're not going to renew it. And I'm thinking I don't care because whatever company you hire, it'll just make them hire me, and my ball keep rolling. I don't care.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Mayor said, "Well, I was thinking that you it'd probably be in your best interest to start a company and bid for the contract." And I said, Mr. Mayor, you want me to bid for a $8 million a year 4-year contract? See, about that. We were thinking about making it 15 years. So you need me to bid on a $8 million a year, 15-year contract. Yeah. Now you have to bid against all the other companies, blah, blah, but 7 board members got 7 votes. So, so obviously I can't work for this company and bid against them. They'll sue me into oblivion, right? So I had to think about it, and it's going to cost a lot of money. You're talking about insurance and identification, you know, and all these lawyers and accountants. And so that's what I did. I put all these things in place, and I started this company. And before the bid came out, they had an election, and out of the 7 board members, 4 of them lost their seats.
Mm.
And they had 4 brand new politicians. Now, when the bid came out, there were 10 companies, 9 multi-billion-dollar companies, and me. But I had 4 new politicians, and I had to get one of them to sway my way. That's all I needed. Everybody else had a proposal or what they thought and how they should run the plant. I knew this plant like the back of my hand, right? It was just, I put in every pump. I hired the staff. I had a lot of diversity in the staff. Now, I put a lot of things in place for this plant.
Beautiful.
And these multi-billion-dollar companies just tell you theoretically how they think you should possibly, manage this plant. I knew exactly. So when it came out, they had these 10 companies. They eliminated my company, my old company, and 3 other companies off the first wave. The second wave, they eliminated 3 more companies. And the last wave, there was me, a company called Jacobs, and a company called Veolia, which is the biggest of them. I think they're worth about $55-60 billion a year. In fact, I think Jacobs is around 40 billion a year, and then me. So this last round was a rapid fire round. You go, you set up with your staff, your team, and then they ask questions about how would you run the plant, right? And I ain't got to study for this.
Yes, sir.
So let me back up a little bit. The wastewater authority, that the board themselves, the reason why they were a board in the first place, they used to be just 7 individual cities that paid the county to run this plant. There was a guy named Dick Hinchin, this guy who started a consulting company on his own. He went to all 7 of these cities and said, it would be in your best interest, pull your cash reserves, get your bonding straight, get your money, purchase this plant from Wayne County, and then hire a company to run it. And all 7 cities said the same thing. We don't know nothing about none of that. And he said, don't worry about it. I'll take care of all of that. He's the one that their bylaws and got them incorporated, had them form the South Grand Valley Utility Authority. He got all that together. He had a finance company come sell bonds, Plant Moran, and he set up everything. And then he stayed on as their consultant. His name is Dick Hinchin. It's funny because I was going into the board meeting one day, and I saw Dick Hinchin get out of his car. There was a white guy with a big red beard in Muslim garb, which was unusual because this area is like downriver Michigan. There's some rural folks down here, right? So
yes, sir.
To get out of his car and this white guy, clearly is a white guy, he's a ginger, right? Get in his car and drive off. I'm like, I'm a fan of who this guy is. I walk up to him, and Dick Hinchin was kind of uncomfortable, right? He was like, who is this guy? I'm like, how are you? And he was like, I'm his son. Oh, he converted to Islam. Oh, I'm like, he came behind. He kind of went through that. I'm like, and Dick Hinchin was looking like, oh, okay. So, I made a point. So he kind of relaxed. His son drove off. We in the board meeting. Dick Hinchin, he runs the meeting. He does his part, then he calls me up. I talk about the wastewater plant. So while Dick Hinchin is speaking, his phone rings. He says, my son, hold on one second. He answers it and says, okay. Hangs up. He says, yeah, my son, I forgot I got this push start car. He stopped it. He can't get it started. And the board members are all simple country folk. They have no idea he got a Muslim son. They would have had a whole different connotation on him if they had known, right? So they were like,
yes,
You on this? You meant to take you to go pick your son up? And he had the Muslim center down in Dearborn. Like, no, I'll get a ride. He walked up to me. Could you take me to? I'm like, yeah, of course I can. Okay, I got it. Okay. Afterwards, we went and talked about, So it was a good time. So we had a good bond. Me and the guy who was the reason why they were in the utility authority in the first place. And when the mayor first made me the offer, he was my first call. His office is in Lansing at the state capitol. And I said, hey, Dick, I need to talk to you for a second. I got a proposal for you. And we got our calendars out. He came down on Wednesday. I took him to lunch next to the plant. And I told him what the mayor said. And I said, I want to partner with you. He said, well, I don't know nothing about running a wastewater plant. That's your thing. I'm like, I know. But between me running a plant and your reputation, I think we'll be unstoppable. Plus, I'm an excellent judge of character, and I rate you in the top 3 people I've ever met. He was like, well, I really appreciate that. I don't bullshit. This is, kind of shook hands and kind of hugged it up. He was like, well, be honest with you, I get an offer about 3 a month from some engineering firm or whatever for me to stop my practice and come join their firm. There's always a flat no. But let me get it some thought. With our calendars out, I'll come down here next Wednesday. I'll take you to lunch. I'll give you my answer. He was methodical that way. He wanted to think through it. No problem. So he comes back down the next week and he says, I've given this a lot of thought and I'm going to have to decline. And this is why. He said, for the last 40 years, I've been an independent contractor giving my clients the best advice for their cities and townships. Because not only did he have South Carolina Valley, he had the city of Detroit, he had the downriver system. He had a bunch of different clients. I don't need the money. And if I change my business strategy from being a consultant, giving my clients the best advice, to contract operations and running a plant, it'll be in the back of somebody's mind that was my goal the whole time. And that's where I was leading everybody. I don't need the money. He said, but I'll tell you this, I will do whatever it takes for you to get this contract. Which is the best endorsement. I got goosebumps right now thinking about those words when he said that, right? And then we packing up for lunch and he said, oh yeah, funny story. I get home last week. This is what he's telling me. And my wife said, so what did Abdur want? And I said, well, my friend Abdur asked me to join him in this company he was going to start and run the wastewater plant. He said, and my wife said, well, you don't know shit about running a wastewater plant. I said, I know, that's what I told him. But my friend Abdur said, I'm one of the top 3 people. He's an excellent judge of character, blah, blah.
Yes, sir.
My wife said, I like that Abdur. Right. And we laughed about it. 2 days later, Dick Hinton sent an email to me, the mayor of Detroit, the Downriver System Board, all of his clients, and said, effective immediately, I'm ending my practice and I'm retiring. My wife is just diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer. And I'm going to spend every dime and every time and every second we got left fighting and beating this thing. Hopefully I'll be back in the future, but it is what it is. And everybody came back, take care of your wife, no problem, blah. And then 2 days later, she passed away. Dick Hinton retired. He was gone. So fast forward a couple years, I go into the board meeting, the last round of this thing. I've got my bank president, because everybody want to be your friend when you're talking about that kind of money, right? I've got my lawyer, I've got the accountants, I got my whole staff. Dick Hinton came out of retirement. And when he came in, the 3 board members that was left that knew him was like, oh my God. He was like, I don't need none of that. I'm here for Abdur. That's it. Came and sat right next to me, blah, blah. And it was an amazing feeling. And I was the first one that, out of the 3 companies, to sit in front of the board and from the rapid fire ask me what I would do about certain situations. And every question they had, all right, what would you do if, you lost both legs of power at the lift station and the pumps cut off in the middle of the night, blah, blah. And I'm like, not only would I do this, but this is what I did when it happened October 31st, blah, blah. They're like, oh, okay. The reason why you have those questions is because these are all situations that I handle successfully and then blah, blah, blah. And this is what I did short term, long term, put processes in place, automatic UPS battery backup systems. But I kind of went through all the thing. All right. So it was easy stuff. And then one of these new politicians, they asked me a question and I couldn't answer. He said, we hire Veolia, multi-billion-dollar company. The CEO gets hit by lightning, hit the lottery, whatever, and quits. We don't care. Go find somebody else. Or Jacobs. But what if something happens to you? We got to do this all over again. And I sat and thought about it like, I don't have another me on the shelf. I could just before I could stutter too long, Dick Hinch said, if anything happens to Abdur, I will come in, I will run the plant. And it felt good, but he can't run the plant. He's 70 at this point. You know what I'm saying? But it was a testament to our friendship, right? And he gave a speech about I am clearly the best option, blah, blah. And then I did the closing remarks about these companies are multi-billion-dollar companies because they take as much from you as they can. But when you need some paperwork from them, they will be quick to tell you no. But when the tidal wave comes and Snicker bars are rising up, you know who's going to be there in it at 3:00 in the morning on a Sunday to handle, make sure your needs are met and blah, blah. But these companies, they'll come in here with 12 executives with $50,000 suits on and $50,000 Rolexes on with the most fanciest PowerPoint presentations ever to show you how amazing they are. But when the tidal wave comes, you know who will be there to handle it. I think they all came down. Everybody wanted to meet Dick Hinchin, the board members that knew him, and all shaking hands and right. Walked out the conference room, and Veolia came in here with the biggest projector I've ever seen, and these $50,000 suits and $50,000 Rolexes. And I looked back at the mayor, he started smiling and shaking his head. Eliminated.
Beautiful.
So it's between me and Jacobs, and they deliberated for 2 days. And then the mayor called me, and the first thing he said was, I am so sorry. He said that we could not sway one of these new politicians no matter what we said.
Yeah.
And I was, you couldn't tell me I wasn't getting this contract. I was thinking about beachfront property everywhere. I was going to be the freaking, everybody was going to be kings and eat and jobs. And I was, to the point where I was like, I'm not working for 2 months. The thought of me climbing the corporate ladder again, once you get that taste of being an entrepreneur on that level.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
That's disgusting thinking I had to say, all right, these are the corporate values and we want you to, some knucklehead and some, and I'm at home and I get a call from a lady, I think she was Hindu. She asked me that I have steel experience. And I used to work at U.S. Steel earlier in my career. I was one of the coordinators there. And I said, yeah, I got steel experience. Who's this? She told me her name. What do you want? I see you have an LLC. Who is this? Right? She kind of explained, I work for a company. I'm looking for contractors to work at U.S. Steel, blah, blah, blah. And so I took her information. I sent it to my lawyer. I said, check her out so I'll make sure I'm not in the bathtub full of ice cubes or something somewhere. Make sure she's legit. You call back like, yeah, she's legit. Okay, so I went down to U.S. Steel, and it was 6 executives in this boardroom. They wanted to meet with me. 3 of them that I used to work for in 2008 when I worked there. And the other 3 used to work for me, and they had gotten promoted. And I'm like, Steve, Johnny O, what is this? And I'm like, well, we were told that we got all this influx of capital investment coming down, and we need some contractors to help. And we were told it'd be in our best interest to give your company a shot. Oh, okay. So I put in a vessel at the Bob and Air Knives, and he said they need a whole new wastewater plant, whole mill, and these things. So, okay. So I started installing all this equipment everywhere, mills and things, blah, blah. And work started rolling in. Of course, then COVID hit. And I put in a wastewater plant at Chrysler, and then they had me stay and kind of managed and launched the new vehicle. They had the Grand Cherokee L, and I had helped convert the facility from an engine plant to a general assembly, where they go from making machining and making engines to making full vehicles, getting new all conveyors, everything, all the tooling and all. So I kind of help with that process. They hired my company to come in and manage the plant. So
Yeah, really, yes, sir. Beautiful and motivational, and people were
I
showing
get
love.
I get
Sir,
long winded, but you called me, so
no, no, this is what we need. We know we can appreciate it. Everybody's like right here with you. Everybody's showing love, brother Kente. Thank you to everyone who showed love all around the world, and thumbs up in the hearts. And can't wait to upload this on YouTube today. I wanted to ask you, what type of music do you enjoy listening to, sir?
oh, I'm old school. I'm '90s R&B. You know, I
Okay.
can venture into the 2000s. When they start mumbling, I start going back to the 2000s and the '90s. You know, so
Yes, sir. And what would you like your legacy to be?
that's an excellent question. So, my life, our lives, they took a turn um, in August of 21. My son Trayvon, um, he had a seizure. He was coming back in a work vehicle out of town, and he will thank God he wasn't driving. He had a seizure, and then the first one, they took him to the hospital. They did all types of scans and top screens, and they couldn't figure out what was wrong. They figured it was a one-off. And then the second one he had, at this time, I was working. When I did not get that wastewater contract, I was determined to make the same amount of money how I could get it, right? So I was working like family, they going on vacation. And y'all go here, y'all go to Pigeon Forge, go to the cabins, y'all go to Florida, y'all go to California. I'm I'm trying to make every freaking penny I can, and that's where I was focused on because again, I was very linear thinking. I still got to get that in my mind. Not only was I going to get beachfront property everywhere, I was going to get an island, and then I was
Yes,
going to make
sir.
a short out of it. And I'm like, all right, October, we at the island, right? So I'm still trying. I got this picture in my head, and I'm trying to map out steps to get there, and I'm sacrificing me, and I'm working 8 days a week, 14 hours a day, 16 hours a day. I'm just trying to, for me, at that point, it was all about billable hours for my company. So I'm just, um, but then he had that seizure and then they couldn't figure out what was wrong. And the second one, I came home late, got to work. I was on off shift at the plant and I crashed and something woke me up about 1 in the morning. And I got up and outside my bedroom, there's it overlooks the family room. It's pitch black down there. So I go downstairs, put the switch on. He's in the floor having another seizure. So I
Mhm.
grabbed him and I called my wife, and then she called the paramedics. They came and got him, and then they admitted him. They did all the scans, and they couldn't figure out what was wrong. And they released him, and then they put him on anti seizure medication, and it made him angry. Trayvon was a very he loved all the family around. He was the life of the party, hilarious, all that. And this medicine made him mad. Like his brother say something to him, get the fuck out. It was like, who is this ain't Trey?
Mhm.
Mom's like, this medicine ain't working. So they said we can't just take him off it because it's dangerous. So we got to ramp him down on one and ramp him up on the other. And it was in that process. And it'd probably been, I don't know, a couple months. He was starting to do a little bit better. Um, I was working 2:30 in the afternoon, but if I get there at 10:30, I leave at 10:30, get 12 hours. So I got up about 9, got showered. I'm heading out the door. He came in early from off the road, and I saw him. I hadn't seen him in a couple of weeks, and we hugged, whatever. Like son, like that. He says girlfriend is on her way because he been out of town. And I'm like, well, if you want to chop it up when I get home, he was like, I'll probably be with her, dad. Yeah, I get it. It'll be life like son, like dad. I left, and about 20 minutes in my 45-minute commute, My wife blowing me up. She said Trey had another seizure. He hit his head on the floor in the basement. And I'm like, you want me to meet you at the house? Meet you at the hospital. She was like, neither. Because the paramedics are here. Thank God his girlfriend was there. But they load them up. They take him to the hospital. Because of COVID, they only letting one person back there. And I'm going to be there with the baby. So you might as well go to work. Otherwise, you're going to be wringing your hands. And I'm like, so I went to work. And it was a rough time. And so they did all the scans and all that, and they didn't find anything. And a couple months later, I'm working so much, trying to chase money, trying to chase that goal. Order depending on how long I stay. Sleep.
Okay. Whew. Yes, sir. We're waiting on our brother to come back. Thank you, everyone who's watching. Can't wait to upload this to YouTube. This has been a great interview. I hope that everyone is enjoying the interview. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Mimi, for explaining it, because I just want to make sure it wasn't me. I think someone perhaps may have called him. Yeah, he's gone. I'm waiting on him to come back on. And then 1 second. All right. Well, thank you everyone who was watching. And today we have 2 more great interviews. One in 30 more minutes, and then another one in 2 hours. So thank you everyone who continues to watch and show love to the People's Podcast. We're grateful for every like, share, and subscription. Thank you all very much. Second. All right, we're just waiting on him. We're going to close it out. I'm excited about today as well as tomorrow. We have some wonderful interviews lined up. Want to make sure that everybody's tapped in, and we're good to go. So everyone, thank you all for watching. Once again, 5 p.m. Eastern, we have an interview, and then 7 p.m. Eastern, we have another interview. So you don't want to miss it. Today, we have a marathon. Tomorrow, we have a marathon. And we're just excited. All right, well, thank you, Mimi, for watching. And all right, I guess we're going to close out on that. Look forward to the other 2 interviews that we have coming up. This is Joshua Leonard Muhammad signing off for the People's Podcast. Thank you all for watching. Assalamu alaikum.